It was a quiet night in the small town of Clearwater. The stars shone brightly and the air was still. Most people were already asleep, except for a few late-night workers and the dogs that barked at passing shadows. Everything seemed calm, until the sky suddenly lit up with a strange blue glow. At first, people thought it was a shooting star, but then the light grew brighter, spreading across the horizon like a silent wave. A few moments later, a soft rumble followed and something large fell behind the forest hills. The sound was deep and distant, not like thunder, but something unknown, something that made hearts beat faster. Eli Turner, a middle-aged mechanic who lived near the woods, looked up from his workshop when he heard the sound. He had been fixing an old radio, the kind his late wife used to love listening to. When the noise came, the radio crackled and went silent. Eli stepped outside, wiping his hands on his worn-out jeans. The night sky looked strange, painted with faint trails of silver mist. Another meteor, he said softly to himself, but deep down he knew this was not a normal meteor. Within minutes, sirens began to echo in the distance. The town's small emergency team rushed toward the woods. Curiosity pulled Eli to follow them. He grabbed his flashlight, put on his old jacket, and walked toward the hill path that led to the forest clearing. When he arrived, he saw a sight that would stay with him forever. A large metallic object, smooth and curved, was half buried in the soft earth. It gave off a gentle humming sound like a sleeping engine. The air around it was cool, almost freezing, and a faint light flickered from inside a cracked opening. The rescue team kept a safe distance, unsure of what they were looking at. One of the officers spoke into his radio, calling for experts from the city. "It's not from here," someone whispered. "Maybe a satellite?" But Eli's eyes were fixed on the small shape lying beside the wreck. At first, he thought it was a child. A small, motionless figure covered in a thin silver fabric. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight. Not pale like a human's, but with a soft pearl shimmer. Her hair was fine and almost transparent, shining like threads of glass. "She's alive," one of the rescuers shouted. They gently lifted the small figure. Her body was light, fragile, and cold to the touch. Her eyes were closed, but faint pulses of light moved beneath her skin, like tiny stars beneath water. She didn't move. One of her arms hung lifelessly, and her legs seemed stiff, frozen in place. The team placed her on a stretcher and rushed her to the town's medical station. Eli followed at a distance, still unsure if what he had seen was real. He had worked on engines all his life, but this was something beyond all logic. At the medical center, doctors and scientists from the nearby city arrived by morning. They placed the girl in a sealed room and began to study her. No one called her by name. They used the term Subject 47, the 47th object recovered from the crash site. They didn't speak to her as a person. They spoke about her like she was a mystery to solve. Eli visited the hospital gate almost every day, pretending to fix the broken generator nearby. He caught glimpses through the glass. She never moved. She just lay there, breathing slowly, her eyes still closed. Sometimes the light under her skin would glow softly whenever someone came close, as if her body could sense emotions around her. News about her spread quickly. Reporters came and went. Some believed she was a secret experiment. Others said she was proof that life existed beyond Earth. People argued on television, but no one asked what she might be feeling, or if she was scared. Days turned into weeks. The scientists tried every test they could, but they found little they could understand. Her body was delicate but alive. Her organs were unlike any humans, yet they worked in harmony. The strangest part was her nervous system. It seemed connected to tiny patterns of light that ran through her skin like living circuits. Still, she did not wake. Her limbs stayed motionless. The doctors called it partial paralysis. They said her body had survived a powerful impact, but her movement signals had stopped. They didn't know if she could ever walk again, or if she even understood them. To the people, she became a story on the news. Some felt wonder, others fear. Soon the curiosity faded. Fewer people came to visit the town. The government set up guards, then slowly began to remove them. The crash site was sealed, and Subject 47 was left in a cold, quiet room. Eli couldn't forget her. Every night he thought of that small, fragile figure lying alone. Something inside him ached. He remembered his wife, who had been bedridden before she passed away. He remembered the same helplessness, the same silence. He saw the alien girl's stillness and felt that same sorrow again. One evening, while the sun was setting behind the trees, Eli walked past the facility once more. The guards were gone. The building looked empty. Through the window, he saw the same bed, the same quiet room, and her. She was still there. Machines blinked softly beside her, but no one was watching. He stood there for a long time, unsure what to do. Then he whispered softly, "You don't belong here, do you?" Inside the room, the faintest glow moved across her hand. It was as if she heard him or felt his presence. Eli's eyes softened. "You're not a thing," he murmured. "You're someone." That night, as he walked home under the starlit sky, Eli felt something he hadn't felt in years, a quiet purpose. He didn't know why the alien girl had fallen to Earth or what had happened to her people, but he knew one thing. No living being deserved to be abandoned. And so, in the peaceful town of Clearwater, under the same stars that had brought her here, a silent promise began to form in the heart of one lonely man, that he would not let her be forgotten. Weeks passed in silence inside the small medical facility at the edge of Clearwater. The world had moved on. News channels no longer talked about Subject 47. The scientists who once filled the halls with buzzing equipment and fast-talking voices had left one by one. The funding stopped, the excitement faded, and soon only a handful of workers remained. The alien girl was still there, motionless, quiet, and peaceful in her small glass room. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the white lights that flickered from time to time. The machines around her still hummed softly, measuring her heartbeat and strange light patterns that flowed under her skin. Eli often passed by the building after work. It had become a habit. Every time he saw the empty windows, his heart grew heavy. He knew the people who were supposed to care for her had stopped coming. One morning, when he went near the fence, he noticed something that confirmed his fears. The main gate was half open, and the security lights were off. Curiosity and concern filled his mind. He stepped inside carefully. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. The air smelled of dust and old metal. Papers were scattered on the floor, and a few machines had been unplugged. No one was there. When he reached the last room, he saw her. She was lying on the same bed, her eyes still closed. The soft glow in her skin was dimmer now, almost gone. Her breathing was slow and shallow. The wires and tubes that once surrounded her had been removed. There was no doctor, no nurse, no sound except the gentle whisper of the wind through the cracked window. Eli's heart sank. "They really left you," he whispered, his voice trembling. He stepped closer and stood by her bed. For a moment, he thought he saw a tear at the corner of her eye, though he wasn't sure if it was real or just his imagination. He remembered the time when he had lost his wife, how empty the house had felt, how cold silence could be. Now that same emptiness filled the room. He looked at her face. It was soft and calm, almost human, yet different, like a painting made of light and water. Her lips were pale, her fingers thin and delicate. She looked peaceful, but Eli could sense loneliness in her stillness. He found a folded paper on the table beside her bed. It was a note from one of the scientists. The words were short. No further results. Project closed. Subject shows minimal brain activity. No response to stimuli. Recommend storage or disposal. Eli's hands shook as he read those words. Disposal, he repeated softly. The word sounded cruel. To them, she was only a project. To him, she was something else. Someone who had fallen from the stars and was now lying forgotten, helpless, and alone. He sat down on the chair beside her bed and stayed there for a long time. The room grew darker as the sun began to set. The only light came from the faint glow that still shimmered beneath her skin. It pulsed slowly like the rhythm of a fragile heartbeat. "Don't worry," he said gently. "You're not alone anymore." As he spoke, something changed. The faint light under her skin flickered once, almost like a tiny spark responding to his voice. Eli leaned forward, surprised. Her eyelids trembled slightly, though they didn't open. It was a small movement, but enough to make his heart race. He stayed until night fell. Outside, crickets sang softly, and the wind rustled through the trees. The stars above shone bright, the same stars she might have come from. Eli looked out the window and then back at her. "Maybe your people are looking for you," he whispered. "But until they come, I'll look after you." The next few days, Eli returned secretly every evening. He cleaned the room, fixed the broken window, and brought a small heater to keep the place warm. He even brought flowers from his garden, a few white daisies, and placed them near her bed. He didn't know if she could smell them, but he hoped she could feel the kindness. Each time he came, he spoke to her softly, telling her stories about the town, about his wife, about the stars. He talked as if she could hear every word. Sometimes when he spoke about love and loss, her light would pulse faintly, as if she understood. One rainy night, as Eli walked through the empty halls again, he found two men near the entrance. They wore dark suits and were carrying boxes. They didn't see him at first. He hid behind a corner and listened. "Everything's done," one of the men said. "They'll send a truck next week to clear the rest." "What about the subject?" asked the other. "The order says to shut it all down. No one's coming back." Eli's heart tightened. He knew what that meant. If they came back next week, she would be gone forever. He couldn't let that happen. He looked at the small room one last time that night, and as he watched her lying there so peacefully, he made a quiet decision in his heart. He would not let her be taken away. The next evening, he came back with a small bag. Inside it were a few blankets, a bottle of water, and some food. He checked the hallway carefully. No one was there. The building was completely dark. He entered her room and gently placed his hand on hers. Her skin was cool, smooth like glass. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe." He found an old wheelchair in the corner, probably left behind by the staff. Carefully, he lifted her into it. Her head rested gently against his shoulder, and for a moment he thought he felt her heartbeat, soft, steady, and real. He pushed the chair through the hallway, his footsteps echoing softly. The night outside was calm, with a silver moon lighting the path. The world was asleep. Only Eli and the alien girl moved through the quiet streets, heading toward his small home near the woods. When they reached his house, he placed her on the bed in the spare room. He covered her with a blanket and sat beside her, exhausted but relieved. The glow beneath her skin brightened slightly, filling the room with a faint, gentle light. Eli smiled for the first time in years. "You're safe now," he whispered. "No one will leave you again." As the clock ticked softly in the background, Eli looked at her peaceful face and realized something strange. Even though she was from another world, she didn't feel distant. In that moment, she looked like a lost soul who had finally found someone who cared. Outside, the rain stopped. The clouds parted, revealing a sky full of stars. One star shone brighter than the rest, right above the little house. Eli looked at it and smiled. Maybe, he thought, her people were watching from somewhere far away. Maybe they would understand that someone on this small planet had chosen kindness over fear. He leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone. And in the quiet light of the room, the alien girl's faint glow shimmered softly, as if she too felt the same. The morning after Eli brought the alien girl home, the world outside looked calm. The air was cool and sunlight came gently through the curtains, landing on her silver skin. For the first time, she wasn't in a cold, empty lab. She was in a home, quiet, warm, and full of life. Eli sat beside her bed, holding a cup of coffee in his rough hands. His small house was simple but cozy. The wooden floor creaked when he moved, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. He looked at her peaceful face, wondering if she would ever open her eyes. "You must be tired," he said softly. "You've come a long way." Her body was still, but the faint light under her skin pulsed slowly, matching the rhythm of his voice. It gave him hope. He spent the day cleaning the room and setting it up for her comfort. He brought in soft blankets, set up a small lamp, and placed a few potted plants near the window. He didn't know if she needed air, food, or warmth like humans did, but he wanted her to feel safe. When night came, Eli sat near her again and began to talk. He told her stories about Clearwater, the small town where everyone knew everyone. He spoke about the forest nearby, the quiet lake where he liked to sit, and the stars he used to watch with his wife. "I think you came from up there," he said, pointing at the sky through the window, "maybe from one of those stars. You must have had a family too." The light under her skin flickered faintly as if answering him. Eli smiled. "You understand me, don't you?" Every day became a gentle routine. He woke up early, cooked breakfast, then sat beside her to check if she was breathing well. He cleaned her room, read old books aloud, and played soft music on his radio. The radio sometimes made small static sounds, but strangely, when it played near her, the signal always became clear, as if her presence calmed the noise. Weeks passed. Her condition didn't change much, but Eli never lost hope. He talked to her like a friend, not a patient. Sometimes he joked, sometimes he shared his worries, and little by little something began to change. One evening, as the sun went down and the sky turned orange, Eli was reading aloud from an old storybook. He looked up for a moment and froze. The alien girl's fingers twitched. Just a small movement, but real. He stood up quickly, unsure if he had imagined it. But then her hand moved again, slower this time, as if testing the air. The faint glow under her skin brightened. Eli's eyes filled with surprise. "You can move," he whispered. "You're waking up!" He leaned closer, speaking gently. "It's okay. You're safe now." The girl's lips parted slightly, though no words came out. Her eyes stayed closed, but her breathing grew stronger. For Eli, that small movement was a miracle. He decided to help her heal as best as he could. Every day he massaged her hands and legs carefully, hoping it would bring life back into them. He didn't know if it would work, but he believed effort and care could make a difference. He also noticed that whenever he touched her gently or spoke softly, her skin would glow brighter, like her body could sense kindness. One night, he dreamed of his wife, standing under a tree full of white blossoms. She smiled and said, "Take care of her. She needs you." When Eli woke up, he felt a strange peace in his heart. It was as if the dream had given him strength. That morning, something even more amazing happened. Eli was making breakfast when he heard a soft sound, a small musical hum coming from her room. He rushed in and saw her eyes open for the first time. Her eyes were large and glowing, the color of clear water under sunlight. She looked around the room slowly, then at him. Eli stopped in the doorway, not wanting to startle her. "Hello there," he said gently, smiling. "You're awake." She didn't speak, but her eyes followed his movement. When he stepped closer, she blinked twice, almost like a signal. Her face showed calmness, not fear. Eli sat beside her. "I'm Eli," he said softly, pointing at himself. Then he pointed at her. "You?" She didn't reply, but after a moment a faint sound came from her throat, a quiet hum, almost musical. The air around her shimmered slightly like soft light waves. Eli didn't understand the sound, but he felt its meaning. Trust. Over the next few days, she began to respond more. When Eli entered the room, her eyes followed him. When he spoke kindly, the glow under her skin brightened. She couldn't walk or talk, but she could move her hands a little. And sometimes she would hum softly, filling the room with gentle, soothing tones. Eli built a small wooden board with symbols and pictures. Sun, moon, water, food, yes, no. He used it to teach her simple communication. To his surprise, she learned quickly. She would blink once for yes and twice for no. It wasn't much, but it was enough for them to understand each other. They spent hours together. He showed her the garden outside, the lake near his house, and the quiet forest trails. He would carry her in a wheelchair, and she would look around, eyes wide with wonder. Birds would sometimes land near her, and she would hum softly, and the birds would stay, as if they felt safe near her. Eli began to feel a joy he hadn't felt in years. His house, once empty and lonely, now felt alive again. He often caught himself smiling for no reason. He realized that caring for her had also healed something in him, his heart. Once heavy with loss was now full of light. One night, as they sat near the window watching the stars, she raised her hand weakly and pointed upward. A faint pattern of light appeared in the air, soft, glowing dots that formed a shape of a faraway star cluster. Eli recognized it from his old astronomy book. "Is that where you came from?" he asked. The girl blinked once. Yes. He looked at the stars for a long time. "It must be beautiful there," he said softly. She blinked again, then looked at him and hummed a low, gentle tone. The sound filled the room like a lullaby. Eli closed his eyes and smiled. He didn't need to understand the words. He already knew what she meant. It was a thank you. And in that peaceful moment, under the same sky that had once brought her crashing to earth, two very different souls shared something universal: kindness without words, love without boundaries, and hope that could heal what science could not. Days turned into weeks, and Eli's small house became a place of quiet miracles. The alien girl, once still and silent, now began to show more life each day. Her name was still unknown, but Eli had started calling her Lyra. The name came to him one evening when he was fixing the old radio, and a soft melody played through the static. It reminded him of her gentle humming. "You look like someone who belongs to music," he had said with a smile. Lyra sounds right for you. When she heard the name, her eyes had glowed softly, and that was all the answer he needed. Every morning, sunlight would fall gently across her bed. She loved watching it through the window. The light made her skin shimmer faintly like moonlight caught in glass. Eli would open the curtains wide so she could see the trees outside and hear the birds sing. "You like that, don't you?" he would say, and she would blink once, her way of saying yes. Over time, her body grew stronger. Her fingers, once stiff, began to move more freely. She could raise her hands and even reach for small objects. Eli taught her how to hold a cup, how to touch the soft petals of flowers, how to draw simple shapes on paper. She couldn't speak, but she learned fast. When Eli pointed to something, she would hum or blink to show understanding. Sometimes, when words failed, light patterns appeared on her skin, soft waves of color that seemed to express feelings. Pale blue for calm, gold for happiness, and silver for curiosity. Eli often wondered if her kind used light as their language. He would sit for hours watching the shifting colors and trying to guess their meaning. One night, while Eli was reading by the lamp, he noticed something strange. The air around her shimmered faintly, and a soft glow filled the room. He looked up and saw her eyes shining more brightly than ever. Suddenly he felt a gentle warmth inside his mind, as if a soft voice was calling to him, not through words but through feelings. He blinked in surprise. "Lyra, is that you?" She looked at him, her gaze calm and deep. He felt another wave of warmth and understood. She was trying to communicate directly, not through sound but through thought and emotion. It wasn't like hearing a voice. It was like understanding a song that spoke to the heart instead of the ears. He saw flashes, images of bright skies, tall silver trees, and beings of light moving in harmony. He saw her home world, peaceful and full of beauty. He also saw what had happened, a storm in space, a crash, and then silence. Eli's eyes filled with tears. "You were trying to help someone, weren't you?" he said softly. Lyra blinked once. Yes. Through those gentle visions, he learned that she had been a healer among her people. She had cared for others, using her light to heal wounds and sickness. During a rescue mission, her ship had been caught in a magnetic storm and pulled toward Earth. She had survived, but her body had weakened. Eli sat quietly after the vision faded. He looked at her and said, "You're just like us in so many ways. You care, you feel, you love." Lyra's eyes softened, and a golden light spread gently across her skin. From that night, they began to share silent conversations through these gentle waves of thought. It wasn't always clear, but they could understand simple emotions: happiness, sadness, gratitude, peace. Eli noticed that the more they connected, the more her strength returned. She began to sit up on her own, and though her legs were still weak, she could move them slightly. Each small success filled Eli's heart with pride. "Look at you," he said one morning as she managed to sit without his help. "You're getting stronger every day." Lyra smiled for the first time. It was a quiet smile, soft and pure, but it filled the whole room with warmth. As the days went on, the bond between them grew deeper. Lyra began to understand human emotions better. She would watch Eli when he laughed, when he fixed his old machines, or when he talked about his wife. She could feel his memories, the love he had lost and the loneliness he had carried for years. One evening, as they sat by the window watching the stars, Eli spoke softly. "You know, I used to think I was done with life. I thought there was nothing left for me. But since you came, everything feels new again." Lyra reached out slowly and placed her hand over his. Her skin was warm and soft light passed from her palm into his. Eli felt a calm energy spread through him, like sunlight on a cold morning. "Thank you," he whispered. In her quiet way, Lyra had become more than just a visitor from another world. She had become a part of his world, a reason to hope again. One afternoon, Eli took her outside for the first time. He placed her in a wheelchair and rolled her toward the garden behind his house. The scent of flowers filled the air. Butterflies fluttered nearby and the sky was clear and blue. Lyra looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. She reached out to touch the leaves, her fingers brushing against the petals. As she did, the plants around her seemed to glow faintly, their colors brightening for a moment. Eli noticed it and smiled. "You're helping them grow," he said. "You really are a healer." Lyra looked up at the sky and hummed softly, a melody so gentle that even the birds grew quiet to listen. But peace never stays unnoticed forever. One evening, Eli heard faint sounds coming from outside, a vehicle stopping near the forest road. Through the window, he saw two distant lights moving slowly. He felt a chill run through him. Perhaps someone had found the facility empty. Perhaps they were searching for her. He turned to Lyra, who was sitting near the lamp. She seemed to sense his worry immediately. Her glow dimmed to a soft blue, the color of calm. "It's okay," Eli said, though he wasn't sure if it really was. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Lyra blinked once, then reached toward him. Her hand rested on his arm, and he felt a wave of peace pass through him again. It was as if she was telling him not to be afraid. The lights outside slowly faded away after a while, leaving only silence and stars. Eli sighed with relief, but deep down, he knew their quiet life might not stay hidden forever. That night, as he lay awake, he looked at her resting peacefully under the soft glow of the lamp. He whispered, "If the world ever finds you, I'll stand by you. You deserve to live free, not locked away." The faint golden light under her skin shimmered in reply, like a promise shared in silence, and as the moonlight touched the window, Eli realized something he had not dared to think before. This was no longer only about helping her survive. It was about protecting something pure, something that had reminded him what it meant to be human. In that quiet house on the edge of a sleepy town, a man from Earth and a girl from the stars shared a connection that crossed every distance, one built not by language or science, but by understanding, kindness, and love that spoke without words. Part 5. The choice months had passed since the night Eli first brought Lyra home. His once quiet house had turned into a place full of warmth and gentle light. Flowers bloomed brighter, the air felt softer, and every corner of the house carried a calm energy that seemed to come from Lyra herself. She could now move on her own a little. Her legs were still weak, but with Eli's help she learned to stand and take slow steps. Each time she walked a few feet, Eli's heart filled with joy. "You're doing it," he would say proudly. "You're getting stronger every day." Lyra would smile, her soft, glowing smile that could melt even the coldest heart. Sometimes she would hum a quiet tune, and Eli would listen with closed eyes. Her voice wasn't made of words, but of feelings, peace, kindness, and gratitude. The days were peaceful, but deep inside, both of them knew it couldn't last forever. One morning, when Eli stepped outside to gather firewood, he noticed something unusual in the sky. A faint golden light shimmered far above, moving slowly across the clouds. It wasn't an airplane. It moved differently, too smooth, too silent. He froze and stared. For a moment he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, but then he saw Lyra standing at the window, her eyes wide with recognition. The glow on her skin brightened and a single tear rolled down her cheek. Eli understood at once. "They've found you," he whispered. That night, the golden light returned, this time closer. It hovered far beyond the forest, glowing like a star that had come down to the earth. The air around the house grew still, and the soft hum that filled the evenings grew stronger, echoing in Lyra's heartbeat. Inside, she stood near the window, looking at the light with both hope and sadness. Eli came beside her. "Are they your people?" he asked softly. She turned to him and blinked once. "Yes." He looked down, his heart heavy. "They came for you. You can go home now," but Lyra didn't move. She looked at him, her eyes filled with gentle light. She reached out and touched his hand. In that instant, Eli felt her thoughts inside his heart again, not as words, but as feelings. He saw flashes of her world again, her family, her kind, the place she had lost. Then he felt another wave of emotion, deep affection and warmth. It was her way of saying thank you, of showing love. "You don't have to stay because of me," Eli whispered. "You belong up there with your people." Lyra looked down for a moment, then slowly shook her head. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. A golden light spread across her chest, flowing gently into his palm. It was her way of telling him that he had become her home. Eli felt tears in his eyes. "You'll always have a place here," he said, his voice trembling. "But I don't want to hold you back." Lyra looked out at the glowing light in the sky again. It seemed to be waiting, calling her gently like a song from far away. Her body shimmered brighter, and the air around her filled with soft warmth. She was healing completely now. Her legs grew steadier, her glow stronger. For the first time she spoke, not with sound, but with her light. Words appeared faintly in the air between them, glowing softly like silver mist. Love is home. Eli stared at the words, unable to speak. He felt both joy and sadness at once. He knew she had made her choice. That night, they sat together on the porch, looking up at the stars. Eli made tea, and Lyra held the warm cup carefully in her hands. The air was cool, and crickets sang in the distance. "I used to think I was just an old man waiting for my days to end," Eli said quietly. "But you changed that. You made me believe life still has meaning." Lyra turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. She reached out and touched his face, and he felt warmth spread through him, gentle, healing warmth that seemed to wash away every sorrow he had ever carried. The golden light in the sky grew brighter as the night went on. Lyra stood slowly, her body glowing like the morning sun. Eli stood too, his heart heavy yet full of peace. He looked at her and said softly, "If you ever have to go, promise me one thing. Don't forget this little world that loved you." Lyra smiled and raised her hand toward the sky. A beam of soft light came down, surrounding her like a blanket of stars. The light wrapped around both of them, and for a moment Eli felt weightless, as if standing between two worlds. In that light, he saw her memories, her home, her people, the beauty of the place she came from, and then his own memories mixed with hers. The forest, the small house, the garden, the nights they spent watching stars. It was as if their hearts were speaking the same language now. When the light faded, Lyra was standing close to him, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't need words. Eli knew what she was saying. "You saved me. You taught me what love means." He nodded slowly. "And you reminded me what it means to be alive." The next morning, Eli woke to the sound of birds. The sunlight filled the room. For a moment, he thought everything had been a dream. But when he looked around, he saw her bed was empty, glowing faintly with golden light. He walked outside, and the sky was clear. The golden ship was gone. But near the garden, he saw something new, flowers that hadn't been there before. They shone with a soft silver light like stars that had fallen to the earth. He touched one gently. It was warm, alive, and humming faintly just like her. Eli smiled. "So you're not really gone, are you?" From that day on, the people of Clearwater often spoke about the old man whose garden glowed at night. They said it was full of light that never faded. But Eli never spoke of the truth. He only said, "It's a gift from someone who came from the stars." Every night he would sit on his porch looking at the sky. Sometimes, far in the distance, a faint golden star would blink twice, his secret signal with her. He would smile and whisper, "Good night, Lyra," and somewhere far away among the stars, a soft light would blink back, gentle, warm, and filled with love. Eli's house remained small and quiet, but it was no longer lonely. It was a place touched by something pure, a love that had crossed worlds and had shown that even the smallest heart on earth could hold the light of the stars.